For me, I see real people, real dogs, about 500 dogs a week coming through our facility. I've seen every type of breed and dog matchup that you can possibly imagine. So does my experience compare with what AI has to say about these particular dogs? Breeds are breeds. There's lots of different breeds out there and they're great. But it's how that breed is matched with the family that really leads to whether things are going to be successful or not. And then, of course, you're never going to hear me not say this, but I'm a big advocate of training. If you're not an experienced dog owner and you do have a breed and you're not really sure, go to training. Learn about how to motivate a dog, how to control a dog so that you can live a great life with them and that you're not using their breed traits as an excuse for bad behavior. The last time I made one of these videos and I talked about a certain breed, I called it a cane corso, and the comment section went wild telling me that I was mispronouncing it, which I don't believe that I was. But what is the proper pronunciation for cane corso?
Okay. It's cane corso, not cane. It comes from the Italian word cane, which simply means dog. So it's pronounced cane. So yeah, cane corso.
You said it with such an Italian flair, almost like a spaghetti and a meatball. So the cane corso. See what I did there? I agree wholeheartedly with this being on the list, even though I know we're going to have some very passionate people in the comments saying that this is the best breed ever and it's the easiest dog they've ever trained. But keep in mind, I've been doing this for a very long time. And with every breed, I've seen a lot of variety, and I've seen a lot of really, really good breeds within that, or good dogs within that breed. And I've also seen some not so good dogs within that breed. And when it comes to the Cane Corso, unfortunately, I've seen more bad than good. Of course, I've seen good ones. I've seen really sweet ones that love their humans and that they love to train, and they're these sweet, puddly, adorable, wonderful little dogs. But I've also seen the other side as well. And what we're talking about today is whether dogs are good for new families or families who haven't had a lot of dog experience. And that's why this dog should not be on the list. They are very big, powerful dogs. You know, they were bred to be a protection dog back in the day. They do have a lot of those natural tendencies. They typically, you know, can not be so great with other dogs. I've seen lots of them not be so great with humans as well. You know, if they get in the hands of the wrong people who aren't very experienced with dogs, it could potentially be pretty dangerous, just like a lot of those other big, powerful breeds out there. You know, pit bulls are another good example. A lot of dogs have a lot of people have bad things to say about these types of breeds. And I know there can be amazing versions of these breeds. I've seen them. I've interacted with them myself. I know they exist. But again, the purpose of today's video is to talk about breed recommendations for families that are not experienced with dogs. And for that reason, I completely agree with the Cane Corso being on the list.
Beagles can be a fun choice, but they're kind of stubborn and very scent driven. So if they catch a smell, they might be gone. you know, however long the leash is, doesn't matter. So they can work, but only if the family really likes structure, training, and, a secure fences. They bark, they howl, they shed. So if the vibe is calm and easy, then they're probably not the best fit.
I have to say I was a little surprised as to why a beagle would make the worst choice for a new family in terms of dogs, because in my experience, they're great little dogs. In fact, sometimes they're on my suggestion list. So I disagree with this suggestion. Of course, there's a few little beagley traits that can maybe be a bit annoying. You can tell when a beagle is baying or barking. You can tell it's a beagle from miles away, because they definitely do have a little bit of a vocal side for sure. But of course, you can train them not to do that. But typically, they're pretty nice dogs. They're very cooperative. They're quite healthy. They're a good size. They're not not too big, they're not too small. They shed a little bit, but for as far as I'm concerned, they do not belong on this list. I think that they could be a great choice for somebody. Of course, with any type of hound dog, you have to think about how to motivate the dog to work, because sometimes their nose gets to the floor and, they get a lot of self-reinforcement for that. But these are all things that you can train your dogs not to do. But for me, the Beagle would not make this list.
Siberian Huskies are friendly, but they're also escape artists with high exercise needs and poor recall.
With the Siberian Husky, I feel like this is a breed where I agree and disagree. It definitely is not one that I am like absolutely never ever get this dog. The thing with Siberian Huskies, or just Huskies in general, is they tend to get a bit of a bad rep. They are very vocal. You can certainly, tell when there's a Husky nearby by the sound of it, for sure. But a lot of people will say that, like, oh, you can never train a Husky to, walk on a loose leash, or come when it's called, because it's bred to pull, and like you just can't change that. And certainly I don't believe that that is true. I have seen a lot of people, several people, be very successful at training Huskies, because if you get them motivated in the right way, they actually really do like to work. They're active dogs. They're quite a lot of fun. I've seen them walk in a perfectly loose leash, and I've seen them come reliably when when they've been called, for sure. However, there are a lot of strong breed traits in there, and I think when you have a breed that has a lot of breed traits that are strong, that aren't always necessarily made for everyday family life, they can be a little bit more challenging. These dogs tend to be more friendly than some of the other dogs that we might hear about. So for that reason, I think they're could be an okay choice. But they are a little bit harder to train for a brand new person. So for that reason, I would agree, but it's definitely not the worst choice.
Belgian Malinois, super smart, but they need a lot of daily work and advanced training.
I can see the draw with the Belgian Malinois, because they're in a lot of movies. They're often depicted as a dog that's very strong and smart, safe. They're super cool, some of the things that we see them do. I know lots of Belgian Malinois. I know lots of Belgian Malinois that are working dogs as well, and they are very, very cool dogs for sure. Very intelligent, have a lot of energy, very loyal dogs. They have a lot of really great qualities. But these qualities do not make them good family pets, especially for people who are newer to owning a dog and newer to training. They are very smart. They're a lot of dog, and if they're in the hands of people who don't know how to properly train and control them, they could be a little bit challenging. So unfortunately, although it's a really cool breed, I have a lot of respect for the breed. Absolutely agree. It should be on the worst list.
Australian cattle dogs can be tough and very independent, and they can get mouthy if they aren't engaged properly.
Australian cattle dog or blue heeler, they often get sort of put in the same category. Agree. And there's a little bit of hesitance to this, because they can be pretty cool dogs, but they're a lot of dog. It's true. They have a lot of energy. They have a lot of prey drive. So, just like a lot of the herding breeds, they are a little bit more apt for mouthing and nipping and things like that. These are all things that you can train the dog not to do, of course. But if it's a new family or a person who's not that experienced, this is definitely a little more hardy dog. I mean, they were bred to chase cattle. You got to be pretty tough in order to be able to do that. So they are for sure a more of a pushy breed. I would certainly agree with that sentiment. They are very smart though, and they are active. So if you have an active family and they like to do things, they're ready for a party. They're ready to do stuff at any time, which is great. But you have to be ready to take on a lot of dog. You need to be able to do training and exercise it. So it would not be one of my top recommendations for a new family.
Jack Russells, small but absolutely energetic and clever enough to outsmart inexperienced owners.
I somewhat agree with the Jack Russell being on this list. However, I think with the right family and the right people, you actually could have a lot of fun with the Jack Russell. It's true, they have a lot of energy. Terriers, as a rule, are known for being a little bit independent, a little bit stubborn, but they can be really, really awesome dogs if they have good training. I definitely suggest, if you decide to go the terrier route, that you need to train it and you need to kind of have an understanding of what you're doing. Also, you need to be ready for their energy level. They are a funny little mix of energetic and they can be a little selfish at times, but they also can be really soft. A lot of terriers can be very snuggly. They're like really cute to like, sleep on the under the pillows and under the covers and stuff like that. So they have like this really cute side, but they also can be a lot of dog as well. So I would say agree, but I also would I don't have like a hard agree on this one. Also, I'm somebody who has owned terriers in my life, so perhaps I have a bit of a soft spot for one, for them. But I do know that if you have the right training, they could probably not belong on this list.
Border collies. Very clever, but they need jobs, not just a few walks.
Well, when it comes to the Border Collie, if you guys have watched this channel or you know anything about me, you know that it is my favorite breed. So obviously there's a bit of a bias there, but also because I know the breed so well, sadly I do agree with the Border Collie being on this list. I do not think a Border Collie is necessarily a great choice for a new family. Border Collies are tough because they are very, very intelligent, and for a lot of Border Collies that I see with new families, they have their family trained inside out and backwards before the family even realizes, because they are really, really smart. Their ability to problem solve is very good. Also, their energy level can be really tough for some dogs, for some families. They need a job. They are not designed just to lay around and just be a family pet. They need to do stuff. They need a lot of exercise. They need their body. They need their brain really worked. I personally love the breed. I think they're fantastic. I'll have one till the day that I die, I hope. But if I'm speaking about new families, especially if there's families with kids, sadly, as much as I love them, Border Collies definitely would be on the worst list.
Akitas are loyal, but they can be aloof with strangers and need a lot of handling and socialization.
Now, I can understand why the Akita is on this list, because a lot of the traits that were explained are definitely something that I've seen as well. We actually don't get a lot of Akitas in our classes, so it's not a breed that we see often. And I think it's because a lot of people are pretty aware of their breed traits. They tend to be a little bit more on the pushy, territorial type of side. They're not always super friendly with other dogs. They're not always super into people. So they really don't make a very great family pet. If people are looking for the certain breed traits of an Akita, they certainly might like it. But I think if we're talking about new family owners with a dog that's big and powerful and could potentially have some personality and socialization issues, it unfortunately would be a breed that I would recommend that you stay away from.
Chow chows are independent and not eager to please.
Chow chows are an interesting breed, and I think for some people they are attracted to how they look because they are very interesting looking. But I agree, they belong on this list for sure. Again, this is another breed that we do not see very often in our classes. Now, we train all breeds of dogs here at McCann Dogs, whether it's in our in-person classes or online. And I think that one of the great benefits of that is that we have learned to understand lots of different breed traits. And, if you learn anything about dog training, is that there is not one way to do it. And sometimes things do need to be adjusted based on the breed or the temperament of dog that you have. And that's what's great about coming to train with us, because we have a lot of experience and we can adapt things as you need it with your particular dog. So if you want to learn a little bit more about our classes and our programs, check out the link in the description below. We have a class called Puppy Essentials for puppies under 4 months, or Life Skills for puppies or dogs over 4 months. Keep in mind, often when we're dealing with training issues, it is really nothing to do with the breed or the dog. Unfortunately, it has to do with the person holding the end of the leash. So we're training you to train your dog. We're not training your dog. And that's much more difficult, but much more important. We have had chow chows come for classes, of course, but it is not, we get one every once in a blue moon. And there's a good reason for that. They are a very kind of more selfish natured dog. They often aren't super confident or just don't care about what goes on around them. They can't be bothered to be very interested in what humans have to say. I think that they still have a lot of their natural breed tendencies built into them because they haven't been overbred over the years, which is fine and dandy, but they are not a good family breed. They're not a good family breed in general, and even more so, not a great choice for a family who maybe hasn't had a lot of experience training or owning dogs in the past. This would definitely be more so towards the top of my personal list. Sorry, Chow Chows.
Dalmatian, too, can be energetic and need plenty of exercise and training.
The Dalmatian is an interesting one to have on the list because I wouldn't say, again, it's another very common breed for people to have. Dalmatians are one of those breeds that when like people are Dalmatian people, they're Dalmatian people. I would agree that it's not necessarily a great choice. I find sometimes the Dalmatians that I've come across can often be... they can sometimes be a little anxious. I've seen lots of Dalmatians that aren't super friendly with other dogs, whether that comes from anxiousness or comes from lack of leadership from their person. If I see a Dalmatian like on the class list or walk into class, I'm not immediately going, uh-oh, anything like that, but I definitely want to suss it out. I want to see its personality because sometimes you kind of have to get to know them a little bit before you can kind of decide. It's, a little bit different than, an easygoing breed that walks in and you just don't worry about it. So Dalmatians do have a bit of a vibe. They're not all bad, but they are one that you need to be a little bit careful with. So again, they're not a super common breed. They are not one that typically would be on my recommendation list. There's actually a few breeds that AI didn't mention that I would like to based on my experience. And again, these are specifically breeds for people who don't have a lot of experience. These are all really three very attractive breeds to a lot of people. German Shepherds are cool. They are known for being very smart. They're known for being very loyal. And in the right hands, they are incredibly cool working dogs for sure, but they're also a lot of dog. And if they're paired with somebody who isn't a strong leader, isn't consistent, isn't going to give the dog the work that they need, they also can be really anxious and difficult. And often if I see a new person coming with a shepherd, I go, uh-oh, this is going to be interesting. The boxer, sorry, boxer people, not one of my favorite breeds. It probably is pretty much on the top of my list for my least favorite breed. And not because I haven't seen the odd nice one, but typically they're just... the people who tend to get boxers are not the people who should have boxers that are coming to training classes. And it's never the dog's fault. I should make sure I say this. Just because I make that statement about the breed isn't the breed's fault. Anytime a breed is not being shone in a good light, it's typically because of the human that is associated with the breed. Vizsla is also a super popular breed, but they are a very spun, energetic, pumped dog, and they require an immense amount of exercise in order to keep the edge off of them. And again, people who just want to hang out in the backyard tend to get Vizslas and wonder why, like, they're, completely insane and annoying. It's because they're just not in the right scenario. Now you know the list of the worst dogs for new dog owners. You probably need to know what the best list is. And I have that for you. Check that video out right there. On that note, I'm Kayl. Happy trading.